The radio drama group presents Alien Depth, written by Jags Arthurson.
Unspecified Radio Studio.
Hello, I'm Roberta Ryan of the European Broadcasting Service. I have put together the following recording with clips from broadcasts made over the past 7 years. It will be stored in several formats, from electronic flash drives at one extreme to, at the other, inscription on gold sheets, 3 of each type. It is intended that these recordings will be placed into 3 satellites that will then be launched into high Earth orbit and broadcast continuously. There is no way of knowing who, if anyone, will ever hear them. Now, before it's too late.
Radio Studio. Christmas Eve, 2012.
So now it's time for a Christmas Eve look at science around the world. Roberta Ryan with Earth Science.
Hello, and Merry Christmas. I'm back from holiday, just in time to present the last episode of Earth Science for the year. And my thanks to Paul Viner for keeping the seat warm for the last 2 weeks. You will remember that last week, Paul was discussing the Mayan calendar and conjecturing whether we would actually be around this week, or if, as many believed, this showed that the world would end on the 21st of December 2012. It seems that, like so many of these end-of-the-world predictions, it failed to live up to its promise. Although, I must be honest, for a few seconds on that morning I did wonder. For my holiday, I sailed down the Azores with some friends, and at a few seconds past midnight on that morning, we saw a shower of 5 meteorites that arched across the sky from east to west, and, presumably, hit the sea somewhere beyond our horizon. Since then, there have been reports of sightings from almost every point of the globe. This seems to represent a previously unknown meteor cloud, and, if there's anything in it, we'll be coming back to the subject in our first programme of 2013 on Monday, the 7th of January. But now, GM Foods. Scientists in India have discovered...
Radio Studio. 7 January 2014.
And now it's welcome back for a new year of science from around the world. Roberta Ryan with Earth Science.
Good evening and a Happy New Year to you all. Welcome to Earth Science. I hope you all had a great holiday. This week we'll be discussing the meteorite showers that have been spotted over most of the globe for the last year. I'm joined in this studio this evening by Professor John Beach of Cambridge University, who has been making a study of them. Hello, John. What have you got there?
Hello, Roberta. My team has been collecting the data on these incursions, and I've summarised them here.
For our listeners, let me just describe what you've brought. It's a map, about 1 metre or so wide, and looks like a fairly standard atlas of the world. It is crisscrossed by dozens, maybe hundreds of straight lines.
627.
627, right. Each is about 10 to 15 centimetres long, most of which end in little black dots, although there are some red dots. Will you explain, please?
Certainly. Each of these lines represents the track of an incursion. You will see that they appear to be completely random. They're coming from all directions, which is very strange.
Why is that?
If the Earth was passing through a shower of meteorites, they would tend to come from a single direction. For them to be entering the atmosphere from so many different directions, they must be completely surrounding the Earth. But the most incredible thing is where they have landed. You see that all the black dots are clustered around just a few specific locations.
What inference do you draw from that?
Intelligence.
Intelligence? Surely you can't mean...
The evidence is right in front of us. Every single incursion has gone into the sea, and not just anywhere, but into areas where the sea is not less than 6,000 metres deep. Not one single one of these so-called meteorites has gone down in shallow waters. Not a single one has crashed onto the land.
What about the red dots? They seem to show...
Shot down. See, they're almost all over the USA or Russia, the countries with the most, shall we say, aggressive air defence systems. And that's another thing, their behaviour. Each of these vessels enters the Earth's atmosphere at over 3,000 kilometres an hour. But they slow down. We can't see how. There are no rockets or anything, but they slow down by some means so that they are travelling at less than 100 when they hit the water.
Vessels?
Well, what would you call them? As far as we can tell, they are all identical spheres of about 800 metres in diameter.
Are you saying that we have been invaded by 627 craft, each filled with aliens?
No.
No. Oof.
No, that was the number of incursions. The one you saw consisted of 5 craft. The smallest group reported was 3, and the largest 23. We have calculated the total so far to be 5,749, not including the 62 that have been shot down. And they're still coming.
My God.
22nd November 2014. On board a U.S. naval research ship over the mid-Atlantic.
Welcome back. This is Tammy Rigsby on the U.S. Naval Research Ship, the RV Atlantis, over the Milwaukee depths of the North Atlantic. When I last spoke to you, we watched as the 2 naval scientists, Commander Jim Posset and Lieutenant Dave Pryor, boarded the deep-water research vessel Alvin with their pilot, Lieutenant John Tobias, and were lowered over the side. The water here is over 28,000 feet deep, and we believe that at the bottom they'll find some of the so-called craft that fell here about a month ago. Over the last few hours, these intrepid men have been lowered inch by inch into the mysterious depths. They are now 20,000 feet down, and the pressure is more than 10,000 pounds per square inch. Can you imagine that? It would be like having a Mack truck parked on a single square inch of your body, one on every inch. The slightest glitch and they would be crushed to a pulp in a fraction of a second. Let me tell you, these guys have got some real guts. We are in contact by a telephone cable that runs down to the sphere. I'm going to speak to Jim Posset. Hey Jim, how's it going?
Hey Tammy, we're good. We got lights off and we see loads of cool creatures glowing away out there in the dark. Can you hear the sounds? You wouldn't believe how noisy it is.
What about when you put the lights on? Can you see anything?
Yeah, Tammy. Not so long ago we saw a well. Can you imagine that? Thousands of feet down, a well catching squid. Hey Dave, turn the spots on. Let's see what's out there.
I guess it's pretty cold down there too.
Sure, no light, no heat from the sun gets down this far. It's amazing that anything can exist.
What's happening, guys?
Dave has turned on the floods, and there's something hovering out there at the edge. Something big, I mean massive.
Can you give us an estimate of the size, Jim?
It's a bit difficult, Tammy. It's right on the edge of the fizz, and there's huge amounts of debris. The water's very cloudy, but if I had to guess, I'll say it was much bigger than a well. It's just coasting along, keeping track of us as we're descending. Hey Dave, let's give them a sweep with the ease on. Alvin has been fitted with a new high-powered enhanced sonar. When we hit it with that, we'll be able to count the hairs on its snout. Just warming up. Here goes. Let's see. Holy cow! The screen is showing that the mother is about 400 or 500 feet long. It's twisting and turning like a fish on a line. It's really speeded up. It's moving away from us now. Rising. It's almost directly above us. And...
Hello, Jim? Are you still there? Well, listeners, we seem to have a technical problem here. The line has gone dead. Let's check with the television guys. They've got another line carrying pictures up. Hey, guys?
Cut the broadcast, ma'am.
Well, why? What's happening? Can you tell me?
Sorry, ma'am. We're cutting the broadcast.
24th November, 2014. Radio Studio.
The U.S. Navy released details of an incident that resulted in the deaths of 3 officers who have been manning a deep-water exploration vessel 2 days ago. Early this morning, a spokesman said that they believed the craft had been attacked by unknown forces. He confirmed that the cables supporting it had been cut, apparently fused by heat. He added that due to the extreme depth, they had been unable to recover the so-called bathysphere with the bodies of the sailors, Commander James Posset and Lieutenants David Pryor and John Tobias.
3rd April, 2015. Radio Studio, Earth Science.
And this week I have one of our regulars, Professor John Beach from Cambridge University, in the Earth Science studio with me. We are joined by Dr. Alan Goodshaw of Oxford to discuss his latest development. Alan, what do you think?
Good evening, Roberta. Well, I can see how the Americans are upset by the loss of their personnel, but I believe that any over-aggressive action would be premature. So far, these people, these visitors to our world, have shown us no ill intentions.
Except killing US sailors.
I've already acknowledged that, but think how we've been to them. All they've done is landed on our planet, dived to the depths of the oceans. Goodness knows how many of their number were wiped out when US and Russian forces shot them down. We have never recovered any remains, as we believe. Their craft are so highly pressurized that when they were hit by the explosive shells, the craft exploded and were completely destroyed. Nothing bigger than a small coin has ever been recovered.
But what about the American servicemen?
Even then, the visitors showed no aggression. The creature the Americans saw seemed to be merely circling, observing the bathysphere. When the sailors turned on their sonar, the creature was obviously greatly distressed. It was only then that it attempted to cut off the source of its pain.
So why are they hiding away at the bottom of our deepest oceans?
Has it occurred to you that maybe it's the only place they can exist? I can imagine they are refugees, possibly from a dying planet. They have come to our world seeking sanctuary. They've occupied a niche that is useless to us. Then we have the effrontery to tell them that they are not welcome. What harm are they doing us? That's what I'd like to know.
So why do they not contact us?
Possibly for the same reason we're not contacting them. They can't. I think we should leave them alone. There is obviously no reason why we cannot coexist peacefully.
I'm sorry. I do not believe that 2 intelligent life forms can exist in a single environment. Look at the history of our planet. We have had many examples of one intelligent species totally obliterating another. We only have to look at our own species drove the Neanderthals to extinction.
I think that says more about our species than anything else.
No. I think you misunderstand. There is no evidence that Homo sapiens actively exterminated Neanderthal. We just out-competed them. We have largely modelled this world to suit ourselves, to the detriment of many other species, true. These visitors' environmental requirements are very different from ours. What if they start changing the world to suit themselves? What if they are even better at changing the world than we are? What if we cannot exist on the earth when they have remodelled it?
10th April, 2015. Deep water, North Atlantic.
This is Tammy Rigsby reporting from the deck of the destroyer USNS Arctic. Right off the spot where those gallant men, Posset and Pryor, were callously murdered by the invaders sulking in the depths where they believe we can't reach them. Let me tell you folks, they got a nasty shock coming to them. The sea has a very slight swell, and the sky is heavy and overcast. About a mile away is the destroyer USS Mason. Through my field glasses, I can see she has launched a kind of giant inflatable craft. As I understand it, this holds a small thermonuclear device with a pressure fuse that will detonate the bomb when it's close to the bottom. A few miles away, there's a small remote-controlled ship equipped with television cameras so we can watch the action on our screens. There are also remote-controlled aircraft, drones, fitted with cameras circling above. The inflatable will keep the bomb afloat to give us plenty of time to get out of the way. That's it. We've had the signal to get out of the area. We're gonna get about and getting the heck away from here.
Later, deep water, North Atlantic.
Welcome back. We've just had word that we can expect something to happen in a very few seconds now. We are now over the horizon from the point where the bomb was launched. About 20 minutes ago, we saw on our monitors the inflatable disintegrate into a small explosion. The contents then started plummeting towards the depth at about 25 feet a second. When it reaches a depth of 28,000 feet, it will blow. Wait. We've been informed that it's exploded. On the monitors, I can see the surface of the sea. It's bubbling and frothing. Wow, it's gone. We lost the picture. There's a vast cloud of water and steam and stuff. I can see it with my naked eye over the horizon now. The great mushroom cloud of a nuclear explosion. Yeah, that'll show 'em. Suck it to 'em.
11th April, 2015. Radio Studio.
The news. In a television broadcast last night, the U.S. President announced that the U.S. Navy had detonated a small nuclear device near the bottom of a deep trench in the North Atlantic. He said that subsequent investigation indicated that there were no longer any signs of any of the invaders' craft at that location. He refused to be drawn on whether further operations were planned, but insisted that the United States would vigorously defend itself from any and all aggression. The ambassadors of several countries with shores on the North Atlantic have lodged protests against the nuclear explosion in international waters.
19th November, 2015. Radio Studio. Newsflash.
So over to the House of Commons, where the Right Honourable Harold Standish, the Secretary of State for Defence, is about to address the House.
We should produce it now in this House. Please, can we calm the debate? This is an important debate.
1 week ago, on the 11th of this month, the British nuclear submarine HMS Triumphant was on a routine patrol in international waters along the western edge of the European continental shelf. Naval HQ received a scheduled radio message at 03:30 that morning. There has been no communication from Triumphant since then. I am deeply saddened to have to announce to the House that we believe Triumphant has been lost with all hands. The Navy is undertaking an extensive search of the area she was last located, and I have set up an inquiry into the circumstances of the vessel's disappearance. On behalf of the government, I wish to extend our heartfelt condolences to the families of the crew.
3rd January 2016. Radio Studio.
The news. A spokesman for the Russian government today confirmed the loss of the nuclear submarine Lenin. This brings to 7 the number of submarines known to have been lost in deep waters around the world since the loss of HMS Triumph last November. The other vessels missing include the American nuclear submarines Baltimore, George W. Bush, and the conventional diesel-electric submarine Schwarzkopf. The Chinese have lost 2 submarines, one nuclear and one conventional. Experts have ascribed the losses to the actions of the invaders now occupying the depths of every ocean around the world. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Pu Ha, has called an emergency meeting of defense ministers from all nations operating submarines. At a news conference today, he said that all nations must put aside their mutual suspicions and cooperate to defeat this menace to the security of our world.
6 February 2016. Deep water, North Atlantic.
Hi listeners, this is Tammy Rigsby. Here we are again. These guys don't seem to be getting the message. First, we have to wipe out a bunch of them at the bottom of the Milwaukee Deep. You would have thought that they would have learned that we won't be pushed around or put up with the murder of Americans wherever they are in the world. But instead of keeping their heads down, what do? They start attacking U.S. Navy submarines. Well, let me tell you folks, we're not going to stand for it. Various intelligence sources reckon the aliens have re-inhabited the Milwaukee Deep and have launched their latest attacks from there. So here we are, just a month later, in a repeat of the operation of the 10th of April last year. Once more, we're standing on the decks of the USNS Arctic to see the USS Mason preparing to launch the inflatable that will drop a nuclear bomb on the invaders lurking thousands of feet below. In the distance, I can see a group of men preparing a small craft ready to be maneuvered over the side. Wait. There seems to be something strange going on. The ship seems to be weird. Like it's going out of focus. It's like watching something vibrating, all blurred. The crew are running about, but can't seem to keep their balance. Oh my God. This bit's starting to fall off. Jesus. A whole radar mask or something has just fallen over. Men are jumping in the sea. It's gone. The whole ship just seemed to fall apart and vanish. Like dropping 10,000 tons of broken up scrap iron into the sea.
Action stations! All hands on deck!
What's happening? What the hell's going on? Here's a sailor. Hey fella, what's happening?
He's gone down.
Why the sirens?
USS Marin has sunk. She's been armed with a warhead on board. As soon as that baby gets down to 28,000 feet, the whole ship bang gonna blow. And we're right on top of it.
God almighty. Are you saying we're going up in a nuclear explosion?
I sure hope not. That's why we're going flat out.
How long we got?
How would I know? A few minutes? Not long.
We've been going flat out for about 6 minutes now, and we're certainly piling on the pace. We've managed to put out about 2 miles between us and the side of the wreck. Maybe we'll be... Oh my, oh no, oh God. The sea's boiling. I think the bomb's gone off. I don't know if we're far enough away. It's blowing.
March 2016. Radio News Broadcast.
For the 3rd day running, stock markets around the world have plummeted as shipping has been disrupted by the rash of sinkings. Just today, there have been reports of over 30 ships lost, from small cargo vessels through cruise liners to giant bulk carriers. Lloyd's of London has announced it will no longer insure any vessels sailing in the water over 200 fathoms. This means that, to all intents and purposes, all shipping will be confined to close coastal waters, massively disrupting world trade. The most immediate effect will be a shortage of fuel oils. This afternoon, a government spokesman said that many essential supplies and services will be rationed, some as early as midnight tonight. Ration coupons for fuel, both petrol and diesel, will be issued from post offices from first thing tomorrow morning, and forms will be available for essential users to claim extra rations. An immediate horsepipe ban has been imposed, and the spokesman said that if this does not lead to a sufficient decrease in consumption, the use of standpipes will be considered. He added that other measures such as enforced electricity blackouts are also possible.
9th May, 2016. Earth Science Studio.
Good evening. Welcome to Earth Sciences. This week, with the world in crisis, we are dedicating the entire programme to the effects of aliens, their occupation of the deep oceans and their apparent attacks on shipping. We have a number of experts to tell us what is known and to separate the facts from conjecture. We will discuss options of how we can deal with them and how to counteract the effects they are having on our lives. Firstly, as usual, we have John Beach. John, you have become, almost by default, the world expert on the subject. So would you like to give us a brief summary of the situation as it stands at the moment?
Thank you, Roberta. Very briefly, it appears that the invaders now control, effectively own, the oceans. In the last few weeks, we have lost thousands, maybe millions of tons of shipping and thousands of lives. We are confined to the land and the shallowest of coastal waters. They are sinking any motor vessel that ventures beyond them. There is one strange aspect. We are still able to use sailing vessels. We're not sure why this is. It could be that they can only detect ships by the engine noise, or it may be that they don't associate sailing ships with us. They may think they're just flotsam. Anyway, we are still, at present, able to cross the deep oceans, so we can keep some kind of an eye on them. A major concern is the progress of the attacks on them. After the loss of USS Mason and her accompanying flotilla, the Americans took a different approach and started dropping bombs from aircraft. They had 2 strikes, but since then all drops, about 5 I believe, have failed to explode. They're keeping very quiet about it, but it's obviously worrying them. If, as the early attempts were, they are activated by pressure triggers, then all the aliens have to do is catch them and store them in waters too shallow to set them off. Frankly, I don't believe this is the case. The Americans are not stupid and would have changed the fusing. But they're still not exploding, so I believe there's something else, something more sinister going on. We also have ample evidence, seismological for instance, that the Russians and Chinese have been going through exactly the same experience. Several nuclear explosions followed by, well, nothing. It's quite possible that they are storing up our own nuclear weapons, possibly even to use against us.
Those bells. Anything else?
Yes, we believe they're mining.
Mining?
Yes. From the start, we've been sampling the major currents of the oceans. Over the past few weeks, we've found huge concentrations of silt in these.
What does that mean?
Well, when you consider the deepest ocean depths, they have not changed for millennia. Every single thing that dies in the sea, every piece of junk, every shipwreck, anything washed into the sea from the land, anything that's denser than water, ends up at the bottom of the sea. We have no reason to think that there are any fewer minerals and so on under the sea than on land. In fact, we believe there may well be vast untapped riches beneath our seabeds. And if they want to establish a civilization, they will want to get them. This would mean first excavating through hundreds of meters of deposited silt. The easiest way to do this would be to use some sort of fan, like a giant leaf blower. This would stir up the silt and debris and allow it to be swept away by the ocean currents. That is exactly what we are seeing at the moment.
So, sinking our shipping, capturing and storing nuclear bombs and mining. Let's get the opinion of Professor James Walton of the University of London School of
16th October 2016. Local radio news broadcast.
And finally, for all you fans of the unexplained, a mystery they're calling the Marie Celeste village. On the Pacific island of Kinsawi, there exists a village practically cut off from the rest of the world. It gets its supplies by a boat that delivers once every few months. Last week, when the supply boat arrived, the crew found the village empty, not a soul around. It seems that everybody, the entire population of about 350, just got up and left in the night. There were unmade beds, meals half eaten on tables, wardrobes were still full of clothes and cupboards with food, but not a living creature, human or animal, was left. Even the pigs, goats and chickens had gone.
21st January 2017. Radio news broadcast.
The phenomenon of the so-called Marie Celeste villagers continues with another 3 remote communities completely vanishing. These are as widely distributed as the Philippines, an island off the coast of Peru, and a small village on the coast of Arctic Siberia. There is now widespread concern that this is further action on the part of the aliens. In an interview earlier this afternoon, Professor John Beach of Cambridge University suggested that the missing people may have been abducted by them.
It seems rather surprising that these people should have started vanishing just like this. One could understand if, with supplies by boat becoming more difficult and less secure, they were abandoning their villages. But that would not explain their complete disappearance. This leads me to the inescapable conclusion that they were taken by the aliens.
Why would they do that?
That's a difficult one. One could imagine a number of scenarios. Firstly, they may be being used as some sort of slave labour, although I'm inclined to discount this, as I can't imagine what use they would be in an environment where they would be crushed to death in fractions of a second. So that leaves us with 3 possibilities. They've been taken as a food source, for scientific study, or simply as an act of war.
Which option would you lean towards?
I really can't say. The aliens should be able to find plenty of food in the sea, but I find it hard to believe that a scientific study of humans would require quite that many samples.
So it could be war. But why abduct them? Why not just kill them and leave the bodies there?
Who knows?
17th April 2017. Earth Science Studio.
This week, a very special edition of Earth Science. Roberta Ryan is on the Caribbean island of Isla del Oro in search of the aliens.
Good evening, welcome to Earth Science. This week we have a team on the island of Isla del Oro. In case you think that this is some sort of jolly, let me assure you that we have a very good reason for being here. The best person to explain is Professor John Beach. John?
Thank you, Roberta. As you know, there have been a growing number of the so-called Marie Celeste villages. Small communities where the population has suddenly vanished without explanation. I believe it's now clear that this is the result of actions by the invaders. My team has been studying these events and predict that This island is highly likely to be attacked in the near future.
How have you come to this conclusion?
We've looked at the profiles of every village so far attacked. Closeness to the sea, proximity to deep water, population size, and so on.
And you think that this will be the next target?
Maybe not next, but soon. The attacks have been increasing in frequency and daring. 3 nights ago, there was a village on a remote island in the Pacific. The day before yesterday, there was an attack on a coastal village in South Africa. And yesterday, there were 2 attacks, one in the Maldives and one not far from Lima, Peru.
So, soon then. Now, please tell us about what you've got prepared for them if and when they come.
Well, of course, we have no idea what form these raiders have. At the one extreme, they may be some sort of organic creature, whereas at the other, they could use a mechanised conveyance.
Like a tank or something?
Well, exactly. So depending on what they come as, we have a whole battery of tests available. We hope to be able to take samples. We have spectrometers and other equipment. We've set up sensors to detect their arrival. We even have sensor pads to see if we can weigh them.
Thank you, John. From our point of view, I am accompanied by a full sound crew. We have 2 camera crews with all the key grips and best boys, and should you be concerned about our security, the local army has a base just 15 minutes of drive away, and they have promised to send a unit as soon as we inform them on any incursion. Now, John, let's talk about the
23rd April, 2017. News Studio.
This afternoon, the Prime Minister is expected to announce that, we have an urgent flash coming in from Isla del Ora in the Caribbean. They are 4 hours behind us, so it's just gone 3 in the morning. On the line, we have Roberta Ryan, our Earth Science presenter. Roberta.
Yes, good morning. Dramatic news from Isla del Ora. About half an hour ago, detectors that we had set up in the sea and on the beach warned us that something was approaching the island along the seabed. Since then, we have monitored their progress, and within the last few minutes, 3 huge vehicles have emerged from the sea. Let me describe them to you. Each is a cylinder about 3 meters in diameter and 20 or so long. The ends are convex hemispheres. It is difficult to say what they're made from. It is a dull grey colour, almost black, and, of course, wet. I plucked up courage and touched one of these cylinders, and it was bitterly cold. When I wiped it dry, it immediately misted up again with condensation. It is very smooth, with no sign of any join, weld, rivet, or opening of any kind. It could be some sort of metal or stone, but could equally be horn or bone. Another strange thing is that there is no visible means of propulsion, no wheels or tracks or anything. Yet they are moving at about 3 kilometers an hour, no more than a slow walk. They give the impression of being immensely heavy. They are sinking several centimeters into the sand of the beach and dislodging it in a sort of bow wave. As you may have heard, the lead vessel, if that's what I may call it, has just started moving along the cobbled path leading from the beach to the village square. It's having the same effect upon the path, cutting a perfect arc shape about 10 centimetres deep as it travels, crushing the cobbles into the subbase, or simply dislodging them and sweeping them aside as it proceeds. This is truly dramatic. There is no doubt that these are artificial creations under intelligent control. Yet it is equally obvious that these are not human technology. This is the first time that mankind has had contact with aliens. I hope that we can establish some form of contact. Let us pray for a good outcome. At the current rate of progress, they will take another hour to reach the village square. I will return you to the studio in London until there is anything new to report.
Many thanks, Roberta. Dramatic developments indeed. If anything happens, we will interrupt programmes to bring you an update.
23rd April, 2017, 2 hours later.
We interrupt this programme to return to Roberta Ryan on Isla del Ora in the Caribbean, where we understand there have been some developments. Roberta.
Well, when I last spoke, 3 alien craft had left the water and were heading up the beach and along the cobbled path towards the village square. They arrived there about an hour ago and stationed themselves on 3 points of an equilateral triangle. Since then, they have just sat there doing nothing. I must admit, I find their total inactivity rather unnerving. But a bit of a party atmosphere has developed. A band is playing. You can probably hear it behind me. And some youths have rigged up ladders in order to climb on top. Keith and I have gone to our room from where we can get a good overview of the square and keep an eye on anything that may develop. It's strange that, although they have been sitting in this warm, humid atmosphere for quite a while, they seem still to be just as cold. I can only assume that they have some sort of internal cooling method. But if that was so, then I would expect to see some sort of exhaust system to eliminate any waste heat. As I look down in the square, I can see some of John Beach's team attempting to take samples from one of the shells. We have both our camera crews deployed, one in the square filming Professor Beach's team and another on the roof above us, capturing the overall scenes. There is no sign of any further movement from the craft. I must admit that I'm finding the whole thing rather menacing. Knowing what has happened on so many other islands such as this, but not obviously everybody shares my feelings. Some people have strung up bunting across them. Somebody is even trying to hammer a nail in, but I have to say he does not appear to be having any success. I understand that the mayor sent for the army when the craft was first sighted, but that was hours ago. If you remember, I said they had promised to attend within 15 minutes. So far, no sign of any troops. Everything seems to be going on as normal for the time being, so I suggest that I hand it back to you and I'll let you know if there are any further developments.
Thanks, Roberta. I hope it all continues to go well over there. Meanwhile, finance ministers from all the EU states will be meeting today in Brussels to discuss
23rd April, 2017. News Studio. 20 minutes later.
That was Peter McIntyre in Washington. Now, I've just heard from Roberta Ryan in Isla del Ora, and we believe that there have been some developments. So let's go over to the Caribbean. Roberta?
Hello, yes. We can't be sure if this means anything, but there appears to be some sort of change going on with the craft. For listeners who have joined us since my last broadcast, I should say that I'm on the island of Isla del Oro with a team of reporters, camera crews and scientists, where, about 4 hours ago, 3 craft emerged from the oceans and took up station in the central square of the town. Since then, they have done absolutely nothing but sit there. But about 10 minutes ago, we noticed some small changes to the craft. It started with one small area, a perfect circle on the upper surface of each, appearing to dry off. Since then, the matte black surface seems to be sort of mottled. It's quite difficult to describe, but you know how oil looks floating on the surface of a puddle? It's a bit like that, flowing, moving. But all the time the surface is staying firm, unmoving. One of the scientists climbed up and tried it. The only change is to the coloration, not the texture. Wait! It's changing again. The circles are starting to bulge, to swell. The nearest I can compare it to is an amoeba starting to bud, as if it's growing a tentacle. Ooh, they're getting really big now, over 3 meters across, expanding like balloons pumped up from inside, with this sort of oil swirl colour change going on. People are reacting in different ways. Some are starting to back away. 2 young men have climbed the ladder and are prodding a protuberance with a sword of some type, without any apparent effect, I might add. The band, as you can probably hear, is still playing, although I notice they seem to have moved off to the far side of the square. Well, I think something is happening. A sphere on top of one of the alien craft is oscillating, shaking. It's burst, split apart, and from inside another sphere, only just slightly smaller, has leapt up into the air and seems to be hovering, drifting. I don't know, like a sort of helium balloon, just hanging there. Now it's opening up like a flower, still floating in the air, but opening to reveal what? A reddish-brown gelatinous material that's sort of oozing out in streamers. Now there's another sphere, and another. Now they're popping up all over, opening up long tendrils. Oh, my lord! Oh, the tentacle-like protuberances are grasping people, grabbing them by their arms, legs, wrapping around necks and dragging them into the centre. I see a young girl, about 10 or 11, snatched out of a doorway. Oh, this is terrible. It's dragging them in, making a sort of great ball of humanity, and a dog, and they're all being rolled together. It snatched one of our cameramen. Oh, Lord, help us, it's killing them. The army, when they were supposed to be soldiers here. Where are they? Won't anybody help us? One of the balls, I suppose it must be about 5 meters in diameter, a huge sphere of dead and dying, has now dropped to the ground and is rolling towards the sea. People are screaming. Oh my God, this is terrible. There are people dying down there. It's awful. Keys! London. I don't know if you're receiving me, but... Oh, God, help us. One of the tentacles grabbed Keith. It's carried him off, dragged him out of the window. It's the aliens. They're killing us. Oh, poor Keith.
Roberta, can you hear me? Ladies and gentlemen, it sounds as though something very dramatic is happening in Isla del Ora. As soon as we can find out what is going on, we'll let you know, but in the meanwhile, here is...
23rd April, 2017. 2 hours later.
We have fantastic news from Isla del Ora. We have made contact with Roberta Ryan. Roberta.
The most terrible thing has happened. The aliens raided the village, snatching people off the streets and even out of their houses. Hundreds are missing. The authorities are still trying to assess who. Most of our people are gone. Camera operators, sound people, scientists, all gone. They snatched Keith and one of the tentacles snatched me. In the nick of time, the army finally arrived. Machine guns were useless, but when they fired some sort of cannon, bazookas, against them, they blew up with devastating force. We believe that several people, including soldiers, were killed and injured when the alien craft exploded. This has been a terrible night. Awful, awful.
Roberta, we can all hear how distressed you are. Please get back to us as soon as you have any more news.
30th May, 2017. Radio Studio.
Around the world, countries with seacoasts near deep waters are withdrawing their populations inland and putting forces on alert against attacks by the aliens. The UN Secretary-General Prunar said in a speech in New York yesterday that mankind may have to accept that we no longer control any of the seas or large tracts of the earth along the coasts. Yesterday, a small force of the Portuguese army reportedly destroyed 3 enemy attack craft as they crawled up a beach near Funchal in Madeira. But there are reports of villages still being raided and all inhabitants kidnapped. An oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico has been destroyed, and the major oil companies have announced that they will be terminating all offshore operations immediately. There have been more revolutions around the world, with the governments of India, Japan and Saudi Arabia being the latest to be deposed. Stock markets around the world have fallen for the 30th trading day in succession. Many shares are being suspended as the value falls to
11th August 2017. Radio Studio.
This is London. The Prime Minister announced this morning that several nuclear explosions have been detected along the coast of Greenland and under the Arctic ice mass.
25th April 2018. Earth Science Studio.
John, please tell us what these latest developments mean.
Well, Roberta, laboratories around the world routinely measure sea levels, and over the past few months there have been indications of small but significant rises in the orders of millimetres a day.
Millimetres? That doesn't seem very much.
Not much. Do you realise how many millions of tonnes of water have to be added to the world's ocean to achieve that?
So where is all the water coming from?
The ice caps. We now believe that the aliens have been undermining polar ice caps. There are some places in the Antarctic where one would expect to find 5 miles of ice. But radar surveys show that this is now less than 4. Readings indicate that sea temperatures below the ice in the Arctic that one would expect to be below 0 Celsius are actually as high as 2 or 3 degrees. This rise in temperature will also lead to rises in seawater as water expands as it warms. Then sea levels rise, and effectively they control a greater area of the Earth. Their latest strikes have been the detonation of a number of nuclear warheads over the last few months, presumably some of those that the Russians and the Americans dropped on them, but also others which we can only assume they've manufactured themselves. Satellite photographs that I saw this morning show that several massive fissures have opened up across the Arctic. The Greenland ice sheet is also melting at an alarming rate.
Be blunt, John. What is your forecast?
I don't want to be alarmist, Roberta, but I suspect that we may well be nearing the end of civilization as we know it. As all the ice caps melt, sea levels will rise by maybe 20 or 30 metres. That means that the land, all the continents of the world, would be reduced to no more than thousands of tiny islands scattered across the face of the planet.
And the population?
Currently, the population of the world is something north of 7 billion. Our new world would support no more than a few million.
Good grief, man. Are you saying?
Unfortunately, yes.
What can we do?
Honestly, nothing.
16th June 2018. EBS Studio.
European leaders today agreed that all internal country boundaries are to be scrapped and a central government will be established, effective immediately. All external borders will be closed. The only entry into Europe will be via 10 specified airports, and the only persons allowed access will be European passport holders. Any non-Europeans will be denied access. A program of expulsion of non-Europeans will commence immediately. Non-Europeans include any foreigners who arrived in the EU as refugees or economic migrants. The right of residency of all non-EU persons is to be withdrawn immediately. The new European government is to reintroduce capital punishment and will draw up a list of crimes for which it will apply. One of these crimes will be foreigners failing to surrender to the authorities when so ordered, or EU residents who shelter them. All radio stations are to be closed down, and there will be a single united service called the European Broadcasting Service. All EU citizens advised to listen to the station for instructions from your government.
26 July 2019. Private recording.
I don't know if I would get into trouble for recording this, but I have to keep some sort of historical record. The new EU government is as centralised and as autocratic as the worst of the Nazi or Soviet regimes, with the exception that we don't even know the identity of the chairman, president, or what he or she is called. The situation is dire. Most people, those still alive, are starving. London is now under 30 feet of water and getting deeper every day. Speaking to my radio colleagues across the continent, I'm hearing stories of mass starvation, food riots, and the army shooting people on the streets. The situation in other parts of the world is even worse, with refugees arriving at the border are being machine gunned on sight. Across the world, an estimated 2 billion have died already, and millions more are dying every day. As broadcaster, I am being told what to present, but realise that most of it is propaganda. The ice caps are still breaking up, or more correctly, being broken up. I saw an iceberg off the coast of Cambridge yesterday. Things can only get worse.
21st December 2019. EBS Studio.
This evening, I am privileged to be interviewing the world-famous Professor John Beach of the University of Europe. The professor was the first person to identify that the incursion, which began exactly 7 years ago today, was the work of an alien intelligence. Since that day, Professor Beach has concentrated on studying and analysing these invaders who are endeavouring to usurp our world. Fortunately, Professor Beach has been sponsored by our benevolent government to investigate potential solutions to this problem, which, if not solved, will almost undoubtedly lead to the total annihilation of mankind. Professor Beach, I understand that there's been a dramatic breakthrough in your research. Can you tell us about it?
Yes. I have been working in the labs at the University of Europe Anti-Alien Research Centre in Zurich. We've been fortunate in being able to collect some samples of DNA from the aliens when our magnificent troops destroyed the war machines as they attempted to invade our shores. With genetic engineering techniques, we have managed to create a protein that destroys the ability of their cells to divide. This means that once infected, they will not be able to repair the ordinary cellular damage that occurs from normal living, or whatever is normal for them. Infected aliens will not be able to procreate, and wounds will not heal.
That's fantastic news. How will you use it?
We have identified that the aliens are infected with a common bacterium that infects the majority of earthly sea creatures. We've managed to genetically engineer the bacterium to carry the protein and deliver it to the invaders. So all we have to do is catch and infect a number of sea creatures, presumably used as food by the aliens, reintroduce them to the environment, and await the results.
Professor, that's absolutely wonderful. So listeners, there we are. The solution is at hand, all thanks to our esteemed... So John, we're saved. Great news. Is it also the truth?
Sort of. Look, Roberta, this is obviously not for general consumption, but there are a number of factors. Firstly, we don't know how long this organism will take to infect them, if it ever does. Next, we don't know how long it will take to kill them, if it ever does. And finally, there are issues about whether the protein will have any adverse effects on our own fauna.
So it's risky.
Not as risky as the alternative. They're continuing to melt the ice caps. The projection is that if they succeed in melting all the ice caps, then sea levels will rise more than 60 metres above the 2012 level. Do you know what percentage of the world is above 60 metres? And of that, what percentage is inhabitable?
So what are you saying?
I'm saying that I believe that once we release this organism, it will eventually wipe them out. Whether there will be, by then, any humans left to reclaim the planet, and what sort of planet they will reclaim, that's anybody's guess.
So what will we do?
The university is about to commence a project to send up 3 rockets and put them in geostationary orbit about the world. In it, they will put records of human achievements. It will sit up there for millions of years for any civilization that comes along. I think you should grab all of your old recordings, edit them together as a record of the demise of Homo sapiens.
I might consider that. But I actually meant, what will we do personally?
I don't know about you, but as a last resort, I've got a nice bottle of single malt and a large bottle of codeine.
This recording will play again in 3 minutes. This recording will play again in 2 minutes 45 seconds. This recording will play again in 2 minutes 30 seconds.
You have been listening to Alien Depths by playwright Jags Arthurson. The actors are Roger Bluff, who played Harold Standish, and Dr. Alan Goodshaw. Kath Newman played announcer and Tammy Rigsby. Audrey Simpson played Roberta Ryan. John A.G. Smith played Professor John Beach. Mick Toner played the sailor, the naval officer, and Commander Jim Possett.